Yes. So recording is now on. So last time, what I decided that so all prerequisite thing which are required, I will cover as we go along. At some point of time, I can stop and explain something else and come back again. So we'll do this thing back and forth. But we start our basic. The first application which we can actually try building is voice over IP. Of course, we are not building it here. The application building is done by the MTech students who are working on V4 development. Okay, MTech and MS students. But this is basically the same thing, and V4 is a much bigger thing than this only. So, but this will give you basically insight into what is the process that by which we evolve the design. Okay, so in this case, you are already have been using WhatsApp, Telegram, Skype, or SIP phones, which we are using in campus. Okay, and I had also told you about this process which is there. So normally we have something called SIP server. Okay. So are you able to get the pointer also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So there is a SIP server, there is SIP registrar. Registrar is basically a registry which will keep the user ID and endpoint. Remember, we have to set up, this is also a mechanism by which a peer-to-peer call is only set up. Okay, this I had explained last time also. Huh? I think I had explained this. So there is something called endpoint address of this phone. Phone is like a computer. So it is actually a computer running with a software. So all phones which are in the campus are like that. Okay, the black ones which you have been seeing on this everybody's desktop. Okay, these are serviced by Orange, but these are essentially created by the French company. Again, I forgot the name. So I will just actually post it. I had seen it in the office, but again it has slipped from my mind. So, and as usual, each phone will have a user ID and phone number. It's obvious. Now there is something called endpoint address. So what do you think will be the endpoint address? Bhuvan, what do you think will be the endpoint address?
IP address.
And should it be only IP address?
MAC maybe.
Remember, on internet or in any network, MAC-based routing is not there. MAC will only work if you are in the same subnet. Yeah, Saurav, can you comment?
So there will be an IP address and a port, I think.
There is a port number. Okay, at the transport layer. Actually, those of you who have not done digital communication network, this must be something new. But should I skip or should I tell what is this port number business is?
Please tell.
Okay, so let me explain that.
Sir, the screen share resolution is very low. Or is it because of network or some setting that you need to
It
do?
must be because of network, I think.
Okay.
It must be because of if the network is okay, then it is going to. You just make it full screen.
Yeah, I have it on full screen, but the resolution is just low. Yeah.
Yeah, you are in campus or outside?
Outside campus, but I have a good Wi-Fi connection.
Okay, I am on a 10G link, so mostly anybody else also facing the same problem? Who is in the campus? Okay, let me see. Somebody must be there in the campus. Rishabh, you are in campus, I think, na?
No, sir, I'm not in campus, but I can see. Yeah, it's clear. I can see.
Okay, it must be some local issue.
Okay,
Local, basically if it is there congestion, then this will happen. Because it is using a different kind of codec. It's a basically what we call the codec which automatically scales down and up depending on the bandwidth condition. So bandwidth becomes poor, it will become fuzzy. Bandwidth is very good, it will become almost crystal clear. Okay, like you are seeing, you are working on my computer, it will be like that in that case. Okay. So anyway, let me just switch over to this thing and just talk about this port and this thing. Because some of you have not done EU673. Okay. So normally what happens in any network, when you have computers which are being connected, normally computers will be connected either using a point-to-point links, or they may be connected through a broadcast network. Okay. So broadcast network in our case is Ethernet. Okay. In campus, it is Ethernet. There can also be a Wi-Fi network, but Wi-Fi normally will actually have a base station unless you are using Wi-Fi direct. Okay. And every node which is going to be sitting in will be talking to this base station. You also call it access point. So when you are at your home, it is going to be an access point. So here communication is mostly based on MAC address. Here also in Ethernet network is based on MAC address. Okay, so when somebody told MAC address, he was right. Okay, it could have been done with MAC address, but for example, in our case, we don't use a full broadcast. We are using something called Ethernet switches. So Ethernet switches are connected in this fashion. So this is the electrical engineering on third floor where I sit. So there is a switch there. So my machine is connected somewhere here. So currently I am not in office, but this is the way the structure is there in my office. And this is connected to this switch. This is an Ethernet switch, and we call it a switch for a specific reason. Okay, this is then connected to another switch which is in the electrical engineering ground floor, which then connected through optical fiber to computer center. Okay, this switch is also connecting to other floors of ACS building. Okay, so second, first, and then Doordarshan Avenue, DA, there is also it's being connected. And then the various other people will have machines there. Okay. So normally your machine will actually have an specification. It will have a routing entry. Okay, I don't have a Linux machine now, but it is still there even in Windows. Okay. So Windows, if you run ipconfig, Windows, I think the command is ipconfig. Okay. And in Linux, it is going to be /user bin ifconfig. This is known as interface configuration. This is IP configuration. So Windows and Linux have gone. This is mostly used in Linux or Unix based systems. So once you do it, it will actually give you your interface configuration. What is your MAC address? What's the IP address of the IP address is never for a machine. It is always for an interface. It can be for a machine also. In some router protocol, it is done. Okay. And there is a MAC address also. MAC address is normally on the Ethernet card. Okay, there is a Ethernet chip which is there. So there is a MAC address which is being programmed into its firmware. Okay, this will be a 48-bit address. Okay, the IP address will be either 128 bits if it is IPv6. Okay, so a lot of you who are actually in campus must be actually currently operating with IPv6 when connecting to me. Okay, so you can actually verify that. And some of you will be using 32-bit IP address also, which are normally going to be on outside the campus, they will be all using 32-bit unless you are on a Vodafone network. Okay, Vodafone network is uses 128-bit. That's true as far as I know in Kanpur. Okay, that's IPv6. This is IPv4. Okay. So the machines are actually on the internet are identified by these. But campus also has something unique. We use something called a private IP range. So there is an IP address range in this 32-bit block, which is dedicated for the private IPs. So these IP addresses can be reused at multiple places on the internet. Actually, internet cannot operate if the IP address could have been reused. So what happens is, in our campus, we have a gateway. So within campus, you are communicating directly with me. Okay, so these will be all private IPs, 172 series address, 172, 26, something, 27, 28. So that those ranges are actually used here. Okay. When you are outside, you will not be using that 3 IP address blocks like this. So if you want to find out, you can actually get the details in Tannenbaum or look into the RFC directly. Okay. So we have a gateway. When it goes to the outside, we actually are using a publicly routable IP address. Now there is a trick which we have to use whenever you use peer-to-peer systems. I will come back to this phenomenon. We have something called net router, network address translation router. Okay. So whenever a packet goes from out, it will dynamically, you will be giving your source IP address, which will look something like this. In your IP packet, there will also be a port number. Actually, it's not an IP packet, it's in the TCP header. Okay. So there is a TCP or UDP, there is going to be a port number. So in that case, there is a source port number and destination port number which are present. And then of course the remaining header and then the payload which will go to the application. Okay. And when this is encapsulated in the IP packet, then you will have the source IP address and destination IP address. So in fact, for an application, this IP address and port number, these two together, this couplet is what is uniquely identifying a endpoint. Okay. So MAC address cannot be used because you are at an application layer. Your application does not bother about MAC address. How the MAC address comes into picture is within the campus. If a machine here wants to talk to this machine, we have this kind of configuration of IP, this Ethernet switches. They only remember the MAC addresses. So if they will just remember on the which port, which particular MAC address was received from which port. So they maintain a small table. So port and the corresponding MAC addresses which are reachable through that port. This has to be refreshed, otherwise these entries will get expired in that case. So if there is no entry, it will simply broadcast on all the ports. Any packet having a destination MAC address. So purely MAC address based switching is done here. So it's not MAC address based routing, it's a MAC address based switching. So when A is going to talk to B, okay, so B only knows A's IP address and MAC address, IP address, they know for each other. A want to talk, but the problem is PC cannot route it to this guy unless it knows the MAC address here. So normally it will use a broadcast MAC address, which is all 48 ones. So it will be 11111. So that will be the MAC address. It will just broadcast with that. So these switches will simply push it on all outgoing ports. So it will reach even here. So when B will receive this packet, so it will know that I got a packet which was destined for me. There is a source MAC address also in the field, in the MAC header actually. Okay, in Ethernet MAC frame, there is a source MAC address also. So it will figure out source MAC address. The packet which came was from this IP address. So it will now maintain a binding there for IP address to MAC address. Okay. And when it wants to send it back, it will use this MAC address for this destination IP in the Ethernet MAC frame. Now switches will only route it as per their whatever they have learned. If the entry for this destination MAC address is not existing, it will just broadcast on all the ports. So if they are going to continuously communicate the path which is going to be there in this tree, all those switches will learn both the MAC address entries. Actually, we will maintain it everywhere. So they will not be broadcasting it to somewhere else. So when I am going to talk to you, only the switches which are lying in the path, the my packets or frames will be only being routed through that. They will not be going to some other hall, okay, or some other place. So this way we actually use what we call spatial reuse of the bandwidth. And the bandwidth, this is what we call spatial, means in space I am reusing the bandwidth. So I can get much higher throughput because of this configuration. Okay. So MAC address is only used here, and this protocol is known as ARP, Address Resolution Protocol. Whenever you have an IP address, you can always find out what's the corresponding MAC address. But this will work if it is only one signal, only Ethernet switches are there. The moment you put a router somewhere, you have put a router here, so I cannot do a MAC address based transmission all the way to you. And these Ethernet cards or Wi-Fi cards, they all have normally 16 possible places, 16 MAC addresses can be stored. Okay, in the memory, in the firmware. So one is hardwired, which comes from the manufacturer. Then there are 15. Now, why these 15s are used? Can anybody guess? Shreyash?
Sir, right now I can't.
Anshul?
I don't know.
No idea. Okay. Praveen?
No idea, sir.
Okay. Have you ever heard of something called multicasting?
To broadcast to all the available devices.
Yeah, broadcast and unicast are the two extremes. Okay. The multicast is somewhere in between. So when you have a network, okay, a guy A will now send a broadcast a packet. So everybody on this network will receive it. Everybody. Okay. But when I say multicast, so I form a group. So this is a group. So when it is a multicasting is only to do, so copies will be only sent to these two, not to others. That's multicasting. So when what happens, the group identification has to be done again through the group MAC addresses. So these are dynamically created. So whenever you will transfer to a group MAC address, only these two guys will pick up. They have not subscribed to this group, and so they will not be having a group MAC address entry, so they won't pick it up. So card-based filtering is there. So this is basically used for efficient filtering of the packets which are being multicast. Mostly it is done that way. You can actually change this MAC address, so you can do MAC address spoofing. So that's a technique which is used whenever you are going to build up an attack. Okay. There is no way you can figure it out if you do MAC address spoofing. It is possible to do it. There are techniques available. Search over the internet, you will find it. Okay, but don't indulge into it unless there is a purpose behind it. Okay. So MAC address cannot be used for routing. That's one one clear thing. Secondly, when I'm building up a network here, these are only identified by IP, but each PC might have been running multiple processes. You are running a browser, you are running something else, you are running a peer-to-peer client, you are running some. So how you will identify when you send a packet to IP address, it is for which one of them? So each one of them will going to have a separate port. There is a multiplexing, demultiplexing done in TCP layer or UDP layer for that matter. TCP and UDP are slightly different. It is a byte stream. So when you push in bytes, they will go in order and will be received in order at the other end. UDP, it's a datagram. For real-time voice transmission video, you will be normally using this because this actually employs something called retransmission. Something goes into error, it will retransmit. So you will always get the correct thing. While in this UDP case, you transmit, something is lost, you don't do retransmission. So when audio is going on, there is a noise. There is no use of retransmission because that's gone. And there is a lot of redundancy in voice, so other guy can normally will pick it up. Okay. So for real-time things, normally UDP is used. Okay. We will be talking about HTTP transport also for some specific cases, some scenarios. It is also used. But that's built on top of TCP. That's application layer protocol. So two applications, this is a browser and the web server, they talk with HTTP protocol. And we have something called QUIC that actually came from, I think this is what is QUICK or QIK. I don't know. I have to check for it. I can just know. Just hold on. I will check. This is a well-known protocol. This is called HTTP3 also. So our Android phones are using this. QUIC, sorry, not QUIK. It's QUIC. Okay. So Google came up with this for the Android phone. So even if you change interfaces, change IP address port, still application will be able to communicate. Okay. So this is for that is called HTTP3 also. Okay. So this for use for media stream. So in fact, all Android applications normally use QUIC protocol, so that you can get a very efficient transfer of information from Google servers to your client in your Android phone. So we can actually opt for even this. This is available in open source. There is no licensing fee to be paid. We can use this protocol also. Open source implementations are available. We have not looked into this as of now. Okay. We are mostly going to work with either HTTP connect. There is HTTP, there is a variation which is used for real-time streaming, or HTTP post. There is another kind of method in that, or TCP or UDP currently. QUIC probably we will program it at some point of time. So currently probably students are not even aware of. So we have an army officer working on the communication manager, so he has to build this module. So whatever he will be able to build up, otherwise the next batch will take care. Okay. So that's a port and IP address. Okay. So switching back to yes, we were here. So endpoint address is IP address and port number. Okay. So as I told, SIP server, because if you know other person's endpoint address, okay, if everybody's endpoint address is published publicly, that's one possible way. But what's the problem with that? If everybody publishes everybody else's endpoint address. Shashwat, can you tell what could be the problem?
Um, Sorry, sir, I cannot think of it at this moment.
Okay, if I know your machine's IP address and port number where the phone is right there, I can actually send a message and make it ring. So it is even without your knowledge. Okay. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry in this world can start and give a denial of service attack. So if I actually get 50 guys, they can actually start pinging you. You will get fed up and you will throw away your phone. Okay, there is no control. And when somebody sets up and you pick up the phone, you talk, there is no way you can figure out who is the other guy. Okay, there has to be a way. So in the SIP telephony, this is not there, because if everybody knows everybody's password, for example, you ask for a passcode and a user ID, everybody knows everybody's password, there is no security in that case. You should not, only the guy who is owning the phone should know the password. So security is the problem here. Okay, so that's the reason why we actually have SIP server sitting in. So first of all, each phone need to authenticate with SIP server by sending a user ID. It will give a challenge. It will give a password. Once the password is being verified, SIP registrar will make an entry. Now this is a signaling port. Remember, signaling will be happening only between SIP and the phone. So there will be actually multiple ports for the same IP address will be used by the phone. So one port will be for the SIP server through which it is going to latch for the first time. So this latching has to be done periodically. So it roughly happens every 30 minutes or so. Okay, you can actually reduce the time if the mobility is there. So SIP registrar will know that if he has to talk to the phone, send message, this is the IP address, this is the port number, this is signaling port number, not on which the voice communication will be happening or on which somebody else will be doing a signaling. So the ports which are used here, the ports which are going to be used here for media or signaling between ANC or voice transmission, these are being randomly generated always. So this ensures when somebody wants to make a call, the guy cannot make a call to you unless he comes through a SIP server. And SIP server, he has to authenticate himself. So denial of service attack cannot be built because SIP server is now regulating everything. Okay. So somebody cannot come and start teasing you. That will not be happening. So once this authentication has been done, you actually through the signaling channel can tell I want to communicate. So that's a step one. Okay, I can go back and forth. So that's a step one. A will tell SIP server that I want to make a phone call to B. It does not know on which port and IP address B will take up the call. Okay. So it will send the message. So SIP server will send a message to phone C because you want to make a call to C. Okay, I have written here B, not C. Sorry, the figure. So you should make it B actually. So this should be made into B and this should be C. So SIP server will send the information to B that there is somebody who want to actually make a call to you and with what all parameters, which will mostly will be what kind of codecs are supported, what will be the security level, whether it will be unsecure call, all kind of negotiating parameters can be sent. So whatever parameters B can match, and if B is willing to take the call, B will respond back. So whatever is the common parameters, only with that the call can be set up. So B will just choose and it will send the information back to SIP server. Okay, so all accepted parameter. So now what SIP server will do? SIP server will send both A and B the information. So information will contain what? The agreed parameters. Okay, this fourth thing. It will also tell that B will be available for taking up the media on this port, for peer-to-peer signaling on this port. Remember, this is still a peer-to-peer communication, but it is using SIP server. It's actually being now deployed commercially all across the world. Okay, as per SIP telephony standard. There is also proprietary solutions which are there. Okay, and B will be informed about A and A will be informed about B. Once they know each other signaling information, they can communicate directly. This way, they also need not do a mutual authentication. Authentication process is done only with SIP. They need not know the each other's passwords. In fact, additionally, SIP server can send a session key to both of them, which can be used for encryption and decryption. So it creates an encrypted channel between them. And then they will decide on the media port on which the voice call will be happening. So normally there is initially only a signaling port which are exchanged, which are given by SIP server. And A and B then over signaling channel will now signaling, which is encrypted channel, will create the media channels. So which can contain voice, video, screen share, whatever you want that can be created. Remember, it's a point-to-point thing. So there is any doubt in this so far? So this is how we also discussed last time. Now, last time I ended up with a question. If a call capping has to be implemented, what has to be done? Okay. So, yeah, Anjesh is there. Anjesh, what should be done?
Sir, this is my first class. I have not attended the previous one.
You have not attended. So anyway, there was some repetition for you.
Something
Let's
like
see.
mom attack.
Can you repeat?
Tapping the phone call between the B2B, it's a B2B. So we have to get in the middle. Some kind of mom attack we have to perform.
No, we don't have to. This is the legal requirement. In any system which is deployed, the call tapping has to be implemented legally. So this has to be part of the design. So when you are going to sell an equipment, not only you will sell SIP server and SIP registrar, you have to sell something else. Now look at the figure. I have also drawn something called media gateway. Okay. So we also have the same thing in IIT Kanpur also running. So what you can do is, now do you think is it a good idea that I can set up a call from A to media gateway and then B to media gateway, and in media gateway I can do what we call splicing of the two calls? Will that make sense, Meghna?
You mean they will parallelly pass through, I mean, media gateway and SIP server? Is that the case?
SIP server is only for signaling. There is no media going through SIP server.
Okay.
Once the SIP server sets up a call, SIP server is out. It does not know what you are talking. Now I want to know that what you are talking, and I want to pass it on to some guy, which is C in this case. So C is the police, for example. So when a call tapping request does come, we have to configure it that way.
Sir, will it be a peer-to-peer network then?
Yeah, it is a peer-to. It's not truly peer-to-peer. In true peer-to-peer systems, it will be very difficult to tap, honestly speaking. Okay, so this is actually technically will be an illegal solution. So if you are as a company providing peer-to-peer system, but you are not providing this call tapping facility, you will be debarred from doing the business in India. That's true for most of the countries, I think. So Indian IT Act says that you can actually provide these services. You have to take a license for this, and you have to sign an agreement with the government that whenever they want for certain specific number, depending on whoever is the authorized person, if they give you a request, you have to tap the live call whenever it happens and then route the call to the guy who will be informed by by the authorized person. So that capability has to be there in every communication. Okay, remember that's the reason why WhatsApp, there was a lot of hue and cry that WhatsApp is illegal. It is technically illegal if you can't tap the call. But then see, government also wants everybody using. So there is some internal arrangement which has never been disclosed. So government never tells they can tap. WhatsApp actually still uses, says everybody we are end-to-end encrypted. But if they are end-to-end encrypted, this is illegal. Okay, so WhatsApp cannot have any incorporated entity in India. If they are outside, they can keep on doing. Indians are using that. At best, they can only, app can only be banned. Okay, nothing more can be done. So Telegram that way, for example, is not. They do honor whatever Indian government says for blocking, for example, channels or groups, but they don't have any, I think, registered entity in India as far as I know. They might have. They are trying to do a business. They are probably coming up with the payment system, and then something like a Bitcoin equivalent Ton, but this was discarded. But Ton has again, some other people are working on something similar using Telegram app only. Okay, so media gateway is what is required. So let's see how it is going to be done. So call tapping is one condition. Within campus, if I implement SIP telephony within my organization, it is okay. Nobody bothers whether I can tap or I don't tap. But if somebody from outside want a call tapping to happen for a call going from inside to the outside or from outside to inside, that has to be done. Okay, but that anyway will be taken care of mostly telecom operators. So we only get a request for verification of people. Well, that's when I was head CC, we used to get it. That you have called to some other country. So who is this guy who called at this time from this number which is recorded in this particular call detail record? So we have to talk to the guy and ask him why you made the call and submit the report. Okay, there used to be a faculty member whose wife was from Russia. So she used to call to Azerbaijan or some place, and every time whenever she was making call, there was an inquiry coming in. And he knew their answer every time. She is calling to her family. So she is a Russian and she is a wife of one of our faculty member, and that was okay. So police was happy with that. Okay, there were some people who went to Africa, to a country on a assignment to a university. When they were calling back home, their family was here. They were talking every time we have to actually give a response. So only that kind of thing was there, nothing more. So tracking suspicious calls is a different business. So also we need to figure out this internet within campus. I am doing peer-to-peer, but when I want to connect to an outside phone, to a mobile phone or to a landline outside, how to do that? And this also relates to how the conference calls will be set up. So currently we are on a conference call, remember. We are all are a group, we are on a conference call, but we are not using SIP. Technically, we could have used our internal telephony system also for doing this. Okay. So these are also sold by a lot of telecom manufacturers, equipment manufacturers as a part, but now this is available here, so nobody buys it from them. Okay. Then there are features like simultaneous ringing on multiple phones, and you can pick up any one of them. This is a very standard feature. Ringing on one phone, and if you don't pick it up, it is forwarded to another phone number. If it's not picking up, forward to another phone number. You can make a forwarding chain. That is also a feature. So how these will be done? So media gateway is the device which will be doing this job. Okay. And we will be doing something called splicing. So two calls will be joined, and the communication happening between them can be combined and can also be copied and transferred to another guy C. So which is the enforcement authority, enforcement agency. So they can actually then view your call. You will never be able to figure out because normally his incoming side is muted. It's only an outgoing link, so he can listen to the communication. Okay. So this actually is a legal requirement, so all telecom operator do it. So if your phone number is on surveillance, so whenever you make a call, the guy in the command center will also be listening to your call in that case. Okay. And not only one, there can be multiple call which can be mixed. So you can extend the same thing to conference call. Okay. Telecom operators line, for example, in our case, we also have a media gateway. So in the small building which is closer to computer center, so we are actually having media gateway sitting in there. So our telecom lines are coming from Tata Telecom, that 679 level. So our all phone numbers in the campus can actually, these 4 digit you put and put 679. So you can call me. So you put 7944, my office number can come. And if you are coming via BSNL, same 4 digit. So 2597944 will be coming via BSNL. So both lines are terminating on the media gateway. So what media gateway technically does is it gives a view to the SIP server that all outside world phones, okay, which are on the telecom network, telecom operator, they are all SIP phones. So media gateway talks on behalf of these phones, ordinary PSTN phones. They will be just converting everything to SIP signaling and talking to SIP server. Okay, so for us, for anybody in the campus, the media gateway act like a virtual SIP phone for the outside phones. So that's the way it is done. So media gateway does all the signaling. It uses SS7 signaling to connect to the communication, the telecom operator. But inside we are actually using SIP signaling. So outside they use something called, we are using even PRI signaling we are nowadays using, not even R2MFC. So we are now currently on even PRI. So even is a standard, 2 Mbps standard for 30 voice channels, and PRI is primary rate interface, ISDN standard. Okay. So now both operators support that. So we will not be going into this. This I think should be discussed in some other course, not here.
Sir, if it is guaranteed that all the people on the conference call will be on the network, then do we really need media gateway?
You need to still have a gateway, otherwise how you will do the mixing of the calls?
We can create a mesh network sort of thing, right?
Yeah, mesh, I can tell you, you have heard of Jitsi Meet?
Yes, sir.
If you have tried using it, your phone will get heated up.
Right, because of the multiple connections.
Yes, it forms a mesh.
Right.
It's a very bad design. While the Google Meet also probably used the source code from there only. Okay. There are a lot of applications which have took the source code from Jitsi Meet and then they improvised on that. Jitsi Meet came out of a PhD thesis, PhD or MS thesis, I think.
Right.
In Area, France, most likely. It's a French thesis. So that guy itself then started the company. I don't know. There is also something called 8x8.
What? Can you repeat?
8x8 is a company, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, I recall. Yeah, that uses
Jitsi
Jitsi.
Meet, the same code, the commercial version support is given by these guys.
Yeah, they
So
provide
they also have a
enterprise support.
commercial variant coming out of Jitsi. Okay, so that's the bad design. So normally people don't do that. You are right, it can be done, but as number of conference participants become very large, this will become a bottleneck because every end node has to do heavy processing. Okay.
Okay.
So while mixing at a central place is a better idea. But this is also, I think, a lot of money is being made by these manufacturers. For example, for us, in IIT Kanpur, they only allow till 5 conference call, only even for audio. And they say only these many 24 or 25 such conferences can happen at the same time. And these 5 can include internal phones and external phones both. Okay. So I can set up a voice conference call, but till 5 they want money. If you want a larger size, that's it. But actually, it's not that a big deal. Even in a peer-to-peer network, you are right. When I'm going to do away with media gateway in our design, in Brihaspati 4, we have to do away with the media gateway. We have to do away with even SIP server. We have to do away with the registrar. Okay. And still implement the same functionality. So one option is what you are telling is using mesh. Now, can you give an idea what could be the other technique? Anyway, I am slightly advanced now when I am asking this question. Ritu, can you tell what could be the? Let me ask the other students also. Ritu, what do you think can be done if a conference call for 40 guys have to be set up in a peer-to-peer mode? Any idea?
No.
Meghna, can you suggest something?
Sir, the nodes that will be communicating they have to be brought together.
Yeah, I think you probably are hinting in the right direction. Yeah, Sangram Singh, can you tell? Let's see. Do open thinking. You can give any absurd solution. Does not matter. Nothing is absurd here. Because same problem we will face when I want to build up a mailing list. Okay. We have all at the rate list.iitk.ac.in. Something like this to be implemented in peer-to-peer is a challenge actually. We are still, this is an open problem. Sangram Singh.
Sir, nothing right now, sir.
No idea. Okay.
No idea.
So anybody else who has some idea?
Sir,
Yeah.
peer-to-peer networks, sir, Rajiv Devi. Sir, in peer-to-peer network, the job of like when we remove the media gateway, so in actual peer-to-peer network, the multiplexing part has to be done at nodes itself. So the processing power, amount of processing will go up at nodes. So all calls can be has to be get multiplexed at the individual nodes.
Yeah, I will tell you. I will tell you the trick actually. So this problem, for example, this live classroom. Now, one of the key things which you should now, because what happened if you observe carefully, there is one thing all of you are missing here. Okay. One thing which all of you are missing is this. That when you are actually having, for example, a node, he is talking. Let's say have a large group, say under 20, 30 guys, 40 guys. Do all the people talk all the time or only very few people talk? In fact, even two people will not be talking simultaneously. That's the fight. Only 1% of the time will be talking. Do you agree on this or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there will be always some leader. We call it a chairman in a committee. Or maybe in a classroom, it's me. I don't require a central server for this media gateway thing. What I can do is whatever I am talking, I just give it to two guys. Okay. Now, how this will be done is a trick. This I have not told you how this will be done. We'll come back to this. This guy can now, I am giving a conceptual thing. So this audio stream comes here, played back to this guy, but this also passes on to these two people. This guy can pass on to these two people. Everybody got the median? When I am talking. Now, if suppose somebody else, this guy wants to talk, what he should do? He should simply send his audio to this guy, who is the leader, who has started the session. And mixing a two at a single node is simpler. You just take two audio streams coming in. These are analog signals, add them together, and this audio going out. And this audio is now streamed back to everybody. So when these two guys are talking, leader and this guy, so their audio is being listened by everybody. When somebody else wants to talk, he will also stream to this guy. So this guy will put it out. Okay. So actually the mixing load is not too much at the one node. So this has to be dynamic switching which is required to be done. So normally whenever there is a large group, we will be using a protocol. Protocol is that people will raise their hand and then you will give him the permission and then the guy will talk. So one after another, this is what is going to happen. See, the way, for example, I am calling a name, then you are unmuting yourselves, then you are talking. You don't require, there are only two guys talking. Only my audio is all the time on. So mixing actually can be done here. But the challenge here is how to build up this broadcast tree so that everybody in the group gets it. Now, why the telecom operator is charging money from us is because his media gateway or conference server, which he is putting in, all five guys' communication comes here. And then he mixes that, all the audios. So he mixes audio A1, A2, A3, A4, and A5. So there are only 5 cases. He creates a sum. Now, important thing is this sum should be sent back to A1 or something else should be done here. Would you like to listen to your own voice after mixing? So when I am talking, my PC is not giving me my own voice. So what has to be done? You must have read about this thing in telephony. Yeah, Ratnesh.
Sir, is this a group call of 5 people or?
It's a group call. The group call is conference call.
So, sir, some should be anything except my voice, sir.
Right, you are right. You have perfectly got it. So I need to subtract from here. I have to add and subtract the A1's voice. In fact, it is not full A1. It is multiplied by some 0.9. Some feedback has to come, audio feedback has to come back to you. Okay. So it is a slightly scaled down version, very small fraction magnitude, small amplification of A1. Part is actually added back for your comfort. Okay. So otherwise you will become uncomfortable if you actually don't listen everything which you are talking. So there is some minor amount which comes back. Okay. So that's normally is done. So same process will be done here. So now the processing is when this sum is created, you are sending it to somebody. So you have to do A2 has to be minus there. There is A3 has to be minus there. So that becomes a complicated thing. But fortunately in this scenario, there is only one guy who is talking at any point of time. There are only 2 or 3. So only for these 2, I have to do this subtraction. For everybody else, I just simply give the sum. So this process, this summation is, these are dynamically being switched. For everybody else, this sum is being sent through this broadcaster. So that's how you can actually set up a conference call. And in fact, the Telegram is nowadays supporting in the channel infinite users in a group call. Okay. They are probably using the same technique. Otherwise, see, using with servers, the cost will become huge. And they are not charging anything currently. Of course, they are not also encrypted. So either they are making money by looking into our data or they are using something similar. So we also have in Brihaspati for one particular aspect of this media streaming with this. So you can actually do a live stream of TV transmission. You can open your TV channel like this, and whoever is subscribing to it, only you will create a mesh of them. You will create a tree out of them. Actually, it will be a mesh connectivity once it comes to you. Because if there's some link fails, some node fails, I need to still repair the mesh so that you can still get the tree. You should never be stopped. So when we'll come to resilience, you will appreciate that. Okay. So this is one possible way it can be done. So let's switch back to the notes. Yes. So yeah, now we are here. Yes. So multiple calls have to be mixed. Alternative, I have already told you. But how it happens in SIP now? It's actually pretty trivial. You can guess it. So do you think each phone need to talk to SIP server and inform that I want to join? This is for call tapping case actually I'm shown here first before the media gateway is used for call tapping first. Okay. So A to SIP server, there is a call request which will be going, connection request that I want to talk to B. SIP server will send it to B the information that a call request is coming from A. B will be talking back to SIP server, yes, I accept the call. Is a natural flow. I think the figure is up here. I have not given the sequence, but I am giving the numbering in this fashion. Now SIP server, once it knows that A and B both have agreed for the call setup, C is the authority to whom the call has to be copied. So SIP server will now message to C, there is a call tap now is going to be activated because we are communicating. You had requested me for tapping the call whenever a call comes to B or whenever B talks. If B is the guy whom you are putting on the surveillance. Okay. So now SIP server has already told C. Now SIP server now communicates to media gateway. Now this communication can happen with different kind of protocols. I have heard of something called MEGACO, Media Gateway Control Protocol. That's the short form for that. Or it can also operate with SIP. Both protocols can be used. Okay. So our exchange supports both. So once it goes to media gateway, it will tell there is a splice, call splice request has come. It will tell him the A's IP address and port number. It will also tell B's IP address and port number. It will also tell C's IP address and port number, and will also give a tag here that the call is only going to be outgoing towards C. So there is nothing going to come from C because the guy is only just listening to the call. It's a call tapping actually. It's a tapping criteria. you can actually have an opt for incoming and outgoing if you want to interfere in between. Okay, but normally for any surveillance, it will be only outgoing. So once now this happens, media gateway will now send the information back to SIP server about media gateway's IP address and port number for connecting to A, media gateway's IP address port number for connecting to B, media gateway's IP address and port number for connecting to C. It will also, depending on A, B, and C's capability, will also decide on the codec. So there can be a codec translation. So one side you are getting a different encoding of a voice. It can be translated and then sent to B. So codec translation is possible in media gateway. Okay. It depending on what kind of how much computational resources are available. So normally based on that, they will decide how many codec translation actually can be done at any point of time. Okay. So once this is done, security keys for all three communication links. There are three parts now. Media gateway is talking to A, B, and C. And they all three can use different keys, security keys. There is no peer-to-peer communication now. Okay. Now SIP server will tell to A that B's IP address and port number is this. Actually, it is not B, it is media gateway. Security key and codec info. Same will be done by, it will tell B this IP address port number and telling it is for corresponding to A. So basically there is a kind of so that A and B will not figure out that there is a media gateway involved in the communication. This is never explicitly told. So this goes transparently to A and B. So I have written it here, but it's never told actually. But this is what is being communicated. That's what was the intention of mine while writing this thing here. It will also tell SIP server that you connect onto the media gateway's IP address port number, security key is this, codec info is this. Now this is what is going to be created. If you want to put a codec converter, encoding converter, so this will be the encoding converter here. Okay. And there will be one encoding converter here and one encoding converter here. Okay, A2 goes to B and B goes to A, and A and B both are being summed up here. Some device goes to C. So C is silently listen to what A and B are talking. So this is a mixer configuration which has to be done. This is software basically. It's not a hardware. Mostly it is done all in software, DSP. And whenever A and B, the call is complete, they will inform to SIP server that call is completed. So SIP server, if A has told call completion, it will inform B. If B has initiated, it will inform A. So there is a sequence has changed here. It will also inform C. It will also inform media gateway to release the resources for the new call setup. Okay, if media gateway is not there, normally you can set up large number of calls. Unfortunately, in our campus, when we have this SIP telephony system, every call is being routed only through media gateway. Now, the company actually has done it intentionally because they want to keep track of each and every call. They are actually charging us for every phone call endpoint. So number of calls gets limited. So, and they will say, now I want more money so that I can increase the capacity. Buy another media gateway from me. So their phone instruments are designed that way. A very bad design, but I think certain startups do provide peer-to-peer thing. Again, but remember that is illegal. Okay. So normally, I think you allow peer-to-peer unless the guy is on surveillance. At that point of time, you just allow the calls from the guys who are under surveillance only through media gateway. So that probably will be a better strategy and more efficient one. So any questions so far?
Sir, so here A and B will essentially not, I mean, they won't know that C is tapping the call, is it?
Yeah, they don't know. If they know, they will not talk, na?
Okay.
So
I mean,
it has to be done transparently.
Okay.
It has to be done transparently. Okay. So otherwise there is no use of tapping. Tapping is only for surveillance, only happens silently. It's a covert operation in that sense.
Right.
Now this is how we are going to connect to the outside world. So I think all of you know that we have connected to BSNL and Tata Telecom. So if I have my phone number 7944, you can have 2597944 is it, and you put a ISD code, STD code of Kanpur, so 512-259-7944. My phone in the office will ring. You can do 512-679-7944. So these remain same. So this identifies the PRI lines. So these multiple PRI lines are coming. One is from BSNL, one from Tata. Okay. My phone, whenever a call is going to come from you, Media Gateway will inform SIP server, which in turn will call me, will actually then patch me up with the Media Gateway and I will be able to receive the call. When I want to make a call outside, it goes to SIP server, which goes to Media Gateway, which looks into if the PRI lines are available. And if all 30 slots are occupied at any point of time, I won't be able to make a call outside. It will say busy. But we actually have two ISD and PRI lines from BSNL, so 60 slots here and 30 slots from Tata Telecom. Total 90 outgoing lines. Okay. So we don't have 90 calls at any point of time going out from the campus to the outside. That is not happening. That's very rare phenomenon. Okay. BSNL we used to have, that's why we got two BSNL PRI lines. We were actually crossing 30 threshold pretty fast and blocking were happening. So we made it 60, two lines. And Tata Telecom, there is only one. So currently IIT Kanpur is configured to use primarily Tata Telecom line. They don't charge for any calls which are going out. They charge a fixed rate every month. That's it. BSNL charges something fixed. So some of the states we are routing the calls through this. So that configuration is done in SIP server. So we are using something called least cost routing. So whatever cost the institute less, we always configure it that way. So before this, actually, I did this multiple lines and negotiations. I was the, I think, heading that particular telecom thing. When it was done, our expense was more than 1 crore a year. This went down to about 15 lakh a year. That was a drastic downward trend. It was, I think, 2005 or 6. That time I did this least LCR. So that was on Ericsson switch was configured, and now the currently one it is being done. Is least LCR is still implemented on this one. So that time we were using R2 MFC lines. Even R2 MFC we used to call it. BSNL was archaic in that way. This is not a common channel signaling. Okay. Okay. This is not a common channel. They were using CAS, channel associated signaling earlier. So this one uses common channel signaling. There is only one common data channel on which signaling packets goes. CCS we call it. So SS7 actually is using CCS based on SS7. This one was different. So now this is being discontinued almost all across the world. No more being used. So we also discontinued at some point of time after BSNL upgraded their other endpoint. Okay. So that's how we'll do the outside thing. So Media Gateway is acting like a proxy SIP phone for all PSTN phones in the outside world. Now there is one important thing. How many of you know about DNS? Because so far I have told you 7944 is my phone number.
DNS and also domain name.
Yeah. Yeah. So and anybody, I think army guys must have heard about DNS. They might have even configured, but other people may not have. So Bhuvan, have you heard of DNS, domain name service?
Yes, sir. Domain name system. No?
Domain name service is called.
Yes. So DNS. It is basically, it is a way of basically wrapping up IP addresses with domain name. Yeah.
Yeah, you give a name and it will give you an IP address back.
Right.
Okay, it is for that purpose. You can actually use something, a command called dig. Windows command I don't remember, but on Linux there is a command called dig. DIG, I think. So that can be used to dig both ways. If you know IP address, you can get the domain name. If you have domain name available to you, you can get the IP address. Okay. And there are other ways of also doing it. So when you do ping, for example, it will also get a DNS resolution first. Now, when you are sending emails, okay. Again, I think I probably have to tell about this. So when you have when you want to send an email, for example, you want to send an email to, this is my IP address. This is my one of the another mail address which I have. Okay, in IEEE.org domain. So you are sending a mail, you are XYZ. Okay, xyz@iitk.ac.in. How the mail actually goes. So normally what will happen is my machine will hand it over to something called a SMTP server. So I use Thunderbird client. So my mail will be prepared, it will be digitally signed by my private key. If you actually already have stored my public key, you can verify authenticity of the mail, otherwise you can't. You will just simply see my public key coming in the bottom and a signed hash. So I will come to this hashing and signature business later on. It is handed over to SMTP server. So our SMTP server which is running is, there are two of them, mmtp.iitk.ac.in. I am using domain name. There is no IP address here. You can actually find out the IP address of this machine. So you can use either dig or you can use ping or you can use traceroute. It will immediately tell you what's the corresponding IP address of the other side. Okay. So they use that DNS name resolution. So we also are running a DNS server. Remember, each one of you has also been told to 172.31.1.1. You are configuring somewhere. It's a name server entry which you have created. And there is, I think, 1.250 or something which is there. There are two entries. Just hold on. I will just look into my machine and tell you. You create two DNS entries, not one. Okay, one is a backup one. Without this, Normos internet does not work. Yeah, IP config will give me subnet default gateway. Oh, I have to look into my network settings. Sorry.
One dot 130.
1.130. There are two actually, right. So a lot of you must have been doing this. So normally we are using DSCP configuration. So if you do manual, you have to do it manually actually. So 1.130, right? That's another one. So this 172.31 is the actually for the prefix for all machines in the CC. Okay. So when this SMTP server wants to send a mail to IEEE.org, what it will do? It will actually now query for a DNS for this thing, IEEE.org. So normally iitk.ac.in knows about which is the DNS for ac.in domain. Okay. ac.in domain DNS will be knowing about a DNS which is for .in domain. .in domain DNS will be knowing about the root domain, root DNS. Okay. So our IIT Kanpur DNS server, this is a recursive based actually. There are two ways you can do it. So either I can get from iitk.ac.in, I want to go here, I will find out the DNS name for this has to be figured out. So I will find out from what is the DNS IP address for ac.in domain. I will send a message to him and will ask him what is the .in domain. So whatever the depending on the commonality of the names. From there I will get the DNS of the domain. Okay, these are root domains actually. From there I will get the DNS entry for the which is a DNS server for .org. Then I can ask what is the DNS server for IEEE.org. And then I will look for something called MX record. MX record we call it. MX record stands for mail exchange record. It will have an IP address. So this is IP address is going to be a SMTP server on running on 25 port. Okay. So now my IITK mail server will transfer my mail to this IP address, which is found through DNS resolution. And then the DNS server will find out where is my mailbox. It will just transfer it there. Okay. Now there is something similarly called SRV record. Okay. This is server. So we actually have SIP SRV record, which is being kept in DNS, so my phone number actually is not 7944, it is 7944@iitk.ac.in. But within IIT, when I am doing, I am not using this domain name, and we are actually not peering our SIP server to the outside domain, outside world. Okay, so otherwise, in fact, if you happen to use ekiga.net, Ekiga, there is a tool. It actually gives you user ID on this. Okay. So you can run your own Ekiga thing, and based on this, you can make the calls. This does allow to connect to other SIP systems. Unfortunately, we have not configured it this way. We are not peering with any other SIP server outside the IIT. Probably there is already a proposal with BSNL. Hopefully, it will be done. Okay. But we still remember this number. We will have some default thing. All calls have to be routed through a SIP server there, and they will route it. But they will normally will be doing it through this numeric parsing. So normally we have STD, the country code. First is whether it's the STD or ISD. So 00 is a country. Then there is a ISD code. Next will be a STD code, and then there will be a exchange code, and there will be a phone number. If it is an STD, there is a STD code, exchange code, and then the number. Okay. But normally what happens is we will be having this STD code, and it's going to be directly a 10-digit number, which is going to be there after this. So 10-digit mobile numbers, till they are being converted to 11 digits. We'll probably show soon we will be having I think 11-digit numbers. So currently we were not having earlier 259. Earlier we used to have 597944. So we got a 2 in between. It becomes 10-digit number, which was as same as the mobile numbers. There was an integration process. So everybody was given this. So BSNL got 2, Reliance got 3, Tata Docomo, at that time it was Tata Indicom, or Tata Docomo later on, or then Tata Telecom now, they got 6. Okay. So they have been all allotted. Similarly, Airtel also has some level being identified. These are for landlines. So STD codes are still prevalent. But they are now actually now probably we will discontinue with this. We will have whole of India as one single unit. That's how it probably operates all across the world. US also is following. They don't have STD code concept. Okay. So the same, you have to do a complete full dialing from anywhere if you want to dial. Same is true in France. So this is also going to happen here. So this SRV record is what is going to give for the other domain, which is the SIP server. So that information comes from here. So same DNS query, you can ask for a SRV record and find out a SIP server and then make a call to it. So this normally will be done by your own SIP server, which is running in IITK. Okay. So we need to also implement something equivalent to DNS also in our peer-to-peer system. So let me close now. So we'll continue from here in Friday's class.